Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Donald Austin. I'm a director with ONE Pacific, and we're going to spend about 30 minutes or so, maybe a little more today, talking about basically automation in finance and accounting area. So no code automation and automation and how it's transforming finance and accounting. So there's three of us we'll be talking to you today. So as I said, I'm Donald Austin. I'm a director with ONE Pacific. We're based in Hong Kong. We work with clients on cloud-based solutions in Hong Kong, Asia, and actually the United States and Europe as well. So we focus on business process excellence, and it includes finance and accounting and enterprise resource planning and automation and analytics. Ken will join us. He's the Director of Solutions Consulting for Asia Pacific and Japan with WORKATO, who is our partner on finance automation. And Timothy Wong is here with me, and Timothy is a senior consultant at ONE Pacific, and he's done a number of projects involving automation and also analytics and some others as well. So he's put together a quick demo, and we'll share with you some insights on how that works and what's going on in the background when we see the demo. So the agenda today, I will do the first part and we'll talk about sort of an introduction to finance and accounting automation. We'll look at some trends, talk a little bit about no-code automation and what some of the benefits are. Ken will talk about WORKATO and some use cases in finance and accounting, and I'll probably jump in during that part as well, as we've got some specific examples. And then Timothy will do his demo. We'll look at some number of different integrations, and then we'll have time for a Q&A as well if anybody's interested. So no code automation and the future of finance and accounting. So just talking about some trends in finance and accounting today. So definitely these are four areas that we see a lot of. So standardization of workflow and processes. So clients are moving, especially as they grow, to more centralized finance departments across agencies and subsidiaries. So you get more efficiencies that way, and it's easier to standardize processes. As some specific examples for us, we have a client recently that it's a US-based client with large operations in Asia, and their big finance team is in Hong Kong. So they recently purchased another company in the US, and they've taken advantage of that to migrate most of the finance and accounting back to Asia, where they have a larger team and they can more easily standardize the processes. So it's consolidation of the location of the work. Once that's done, you can look at moving to strategic higher value activities, and you'll see that theme, I think, throughout this process or throughout this webinar. It's really about automating the low value menial tasks that no one likes to do. Hopefully no one likes to do that. And that lets the finance and accounting team focus on more high value things like analytics, provide advice to the business, as we say, becoming more of a strategic partner to the business. A lot of this is enabled by cloud technology. So the cloud technology tends to be more simple. And scale is really important, right? So as a business grows, the cloud technology allows, effectively unlimited scalability. And there's a lot more security in there as well compared to on-premise or home-built solutions. Cloud-based cloud solution providers, they spend, for obvious reasons, a lot of money, a lot of effort on security. So that comes built in as well. And then there's greater use of analytics and insights, and this goes along with kind of adding more value to the business, becoming a strategic partner to the business. You're incorporating data analytics and business intelligence tools into the finance process. This is an area where we personally are seeing a lot more movement, and I just have a slide on this talking about where analytics can add value, and you cannot do this without automation. Right, so there's about four different. It's kind of a stair step. 4 different areas of analytics, and each one provides more value than before. But they build on each other. So you can't really start at the top without going through the first 3 levels. And the first one is what we just call descriptive analytics. And this is where most clients are now. We read about AI and machine learning, but really most clients are down here. And with the automation, they can more easily get to the higher level stages and provide more value. So this is not a webinar on analytics, but we are seeing a lot of clients use the automation to help improve their analytics, which is a big area. So that kind of goes to this slide where it is finance and accounting is transforming. So it's moving from a largely operational and administrative function to, as I say, more focused on strategic, more focused on business value. And analytics is a perfect example of that. And the only way to get there is to remove and automate the busy work, which frees up the staff to focus on the higher value activities. So some specific areas, just drilling down into that a little bit. So obviously there's an improvement in productivity, right? I can do more at the same time with fewer people or the same number of people. Operations, most companies are trying to scale up. So I can, with the same team, I can do more work. I can easily scale into different geographies, add new subsidiaries without having to add all the extra manpower to go along with it. Speed and quality. So that's really about kind of the business cycle time. So I can improve my business process speed, whether it's reporting, automating the reporting, maybe it's month-end close or reconciliations that I can automate. And in many cases, I boost the accuracy as well, right? Because you've eliminated a lot of the human component of that. And so you've taken away the chance for data entry errors, missing documents, things like that. As the business grows, this is naturally going to achieve some cost savings. So I'm going to achieve it in multiple ways, not only reducing storage and printing, but also just being more efficient, right? To get more cost savings. And I've got a specific example later we'll talk about, where a business scales up extremely fast, yet their finance and accounting team doesn't scale up at the same speed, but at the same time delivers more value. So that's sort of the golden thing we're going after. But the last one here I think is really important. I'm talking about engaging employees. So if you're adding more value to the business and your finance and accounting team are doing more analytics, more valuable stuff, it's a more interesting job, right? It's a more interesting business. They're going to be more engaged, and they're going to hopefully stick around for longer. Because when you lose employees, if there's a lot of turnover, you lose a lot of institutional knowledge. So keeping the team engaged and happy is actually really, really important. And particularly in the U.S., I know these days, keeping people engaged and reducing turnovers is very, very difficult. So, as you look at the automation, you're also focusing on how do I make my team more productive and make their jobs more interesting as well. So this is kind of interesting. So which departments have the most automation? So IT and engineering comes in at about 40%. Which is not really a surprise, I guess, with a lot of technical people. But finance and accounting is actually second. So this is from a work automation index. So a little over 26% of automations are in finance and accounting, but there's still a lot of room for improvement, a lot of stuff to go. Customer support, and then sales and marketing, and then HR and payroll. We also see that there are a lot of automations in HR around recruiting and managing that process as well. But finance and accounting is way up there. So breaking that down just a little bit, areas that we see automations, order to cash, that tends to be that in a lot of cases, it can be very manual, especially if we have very small transactions. Accounts payable, again, that's an area ripe for automation. I've recently read an article where Microsoft, the global company, actually automated 70% of their accounts payable, just paid, approved and paid automatically, which is a large number if you think of the size of the company. But other areas that are big are record to report, planning and forecasting. So these are areas where you'll have a lot of data moving around, perhaps from one system to the other. So you can do the analytics around those two things. And then procure to pay, inventory management, especially in Asia, that's quite important, right? Because we're doing a lot of sourcing and manufacturing in Asia. So we see a lot of requests around inventory management to automate things in there. As far as growth, accounts payable seems to be the fastest area that's growing. So overtaking order to cash, at least in the growth, but you can see some of the others there. Personally, we think that this planning and forecasting and the record to report areas are going to start to grow faster as well as people get more and more data. So, right, so if you have an ERP system now, or you're going to collect a lot more data than you're used to, and then the automation is a way to actually do something with that to add some value. Some little more detail in the top 10 automated processes in organizations. And we talked about order to cash. Some interesting statistics on growth from before versus after the pandemic. So high growth in the order to cash area. Data pipelines, and this is extract, transform, and load. So this is moving the data around so it can be used in analytics. That's been growing about 152%. As I keep mentioning, we're seeing a lot of requests around that. And Timothy's actually done some specific work in that area. So the others are, IT automations, IT help desk, sales operations, some others, and then customer account management has seen some really high growth as well. So some more specific use cases in finance in particular. So sales orders creations to automate in that order fulfillment. And that order fulfillment can also be connections to third-party logistics providers if you're doing that kind of stuff, or even e-commerce as well. We're seeing a lot in e-commerce. We got a little case study, I think, later on e-commerce. Invoice creation, payment processing. I mean, it's all the standard processes if you're in the finance side. It's the key is just to think about, where my data is coming from and what are the opportunities to automate it. Employee and customer requirements. So what's the, you've got a salesperson, their client is asking them, what's the status of a payment or things like that. Again, I saw a stat that one large tech company, I think they did 3 million inquiries a year were all automated, so they just, you'd ask the question and then the system would shoot you the answer back. So that saves a huge amount of time on finance staff having to answer those questions, right? And no one in the finance staff wants to do that. I sure don't. Notifications, approvals, and escalations. So to us, this is around speeding up the business process. A lot of approvals can actually be done automatically. If there's a rule that can be followed, you don't really need a human involved. But if there is a human that needs to be involved, maybe it's over a certain limit, then you can automate that. So you automatically send the notice out. It could go to Microsoft Teams. It could go to Slack. There's many ways you could do it to speed that process up. So especially you're not having to send the boss the email saying, please approve this invoice, things like that. This really can, over the long run, this can really speed up a lot of things. And then we talked a little bit about data synchronization as well. So moving the data around, collecting the data, helping with the month-end report generation, management report generation, payroll automation, and then reconciliations as well. So if you're a high volume organization, you need to reconcile sales, payment, other things, and that data may be coming from external sources, needs to get into your ERP system so you can do the reconciliation. That process is automated rather than having someone type it in or having to go and upload an Excel file into the system. This is kind of beyond finance, so interactions with other departments. So Timothy and I were talking the other day. When most people think of automations, at least it's our experience, they think of integrations first, right? So I'm going to integrate one system to the next. So I'm going to have create an order in my my Salesforce system, and I'm going to have the order automatically sent to the finance system so that I can receive the payment. And that's usually where people start, and that makes a lot of sense. But then the really thing to think about is, how do I use the automations to kind of go beyond the different silos of departments. So finance, because finance sits at the center of the business, or the owner of the business model, they're going to deal with everyone, whether it's marketing, IT, operations, sales. So it's just automating those interactions. And I think we'll see an example in the demo a little later of using Slack or Teams on how that could work. So really, it's kind of the next step beyond the integration is thinking about, wow, how can I automate some of my interactions with the other departments? And that, again, it speeds up the business cycle. It reduces friction between departments, definitely reduces email, which we all like, and makes things just a lot easier. And once you have an automation platform in place, the more automations you add, the less expensive each one becomes. They just build on one another. So there's a declining cost curve if you think about it, the more you do. So just a few words on low code, no code automation. So I won't read the slide, but you've probably heard the term low code or no code, and the WORKATO platform is certainly that. So the idea is, and we'll see some easy examples, the idea is that you don't need the IT department necessarily to do, kind of basic automations, basic integrations. WORKATO, one of the reasons we really like working with the tool is it comes pre-built with hooks into all kinds of systems. So we do a lot of work with Oracle NetSuite, so there are hooks into that. There's hooks into Slack. There's hooks into pretty much anything you can think of, SAP, other systems. So it's actually quite easy without any IT or technical experience to build some automations. So that's kind of the low code, no code part of that. And that's good for a couple reasons. One is it allows the finance team to start working quickly, to get some return on the investment very quickly, and build some of their own integrations, and their own automations. And for the IT team, they don't have to worry about sort of the easy stuff. They can focus on the more complex IT projects that come along. So it really does benefit everybody. And most employees now have some level of technical skills, and we all get it in school. So it's actually really quite easy to pick up. And we'll see some specific examples. It really is just drag and drop, point to this, point to that. So you'll probably see, if you haven't heard the term low code, no code, you definitely will in the future. And WORKATO is definitely a low code, no code automation tool. So I'm going to give you an example here. This was just based from a basic finance perspective. I ran into this article literally this morning, and I thought it had some really good points. So Applied Materials supplies stuff to semiconductor firms. And I'm just approaching it from a business case to give you some examples of what a firm can achieve. So they've got a process they're called the Agile Finance Initiative, and they've done a lot. They've reduced the time they spent collecting data. The headcount in the finance department has remained flat as the business has grown. You can imagine the semiconductor business has really taken off in the last few years. The CFO says they've increased the efficiency of their teams, and their team has better skills. And I kind of mentioned this earlier about more analytic skills providing better value to the business. And they, what he said, and I'm reading the article right now, what he said is, they go through every process and look at where they can automate it. In their old way of doing business, the data was coming to finance employees. Finance employees were manipulating the data, putting it into spreadsheets, and then reporting it back out again. So they've automated that whole process from collecting the data, manipulating it, and then generating the reports as well. He says they were spending 60 to 70% of their time collecting and cleaning data, and then 20% reporting it out. And maybe 5 or 10% was spent time on getting insights. So they've turned that on their head, and they say now that 10 to 15% of the time is data collection, and the rest of the time is really for analytics. So that provides a huge value to the business, and it lets the finance people focus on providing judgments and insights into how the business works. As I said before, ONE Pacific, we look at the finance and accounting department as really the owners of the business model. So they understand how all the pieces come together financially. So they're the ones that should be providing the insight on what happens if this changes or that changes. And again, if you have more time to do that, you can provide more value. So just a kind of a real life example of a company that is using automation to improve the finance department. And they're also using, in analytics, they moved all their data into data lakes. So they've automated that process as well. I did some math on them, and about 2% of their employees are in finance. And even though the business has grown exponentially in the last few years, that stayed about the same. So they're really getting some good efficiency out of it. So just a summary of what I've talked about, where finance sees the value of this kind of automation. So it's an increased efficiency and reduced cycle time of the business, increased control over processes, less reliance on IT for the automations and integration. So it lets IT focus on more valuable stuff as well. You've got the ability to monitor and maintain processes electronically. So it's more like looking at an electronic map of the company and monitoring how things are flowing. Better and faster financial reporting, less errors. And then to me, the really big one is increased ability for higher level and higher value analytics. So the end result is a finance team that has more time and better data to become a strategic partner to the business rather than just an operational department. Obviously, it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. Some people ask, hey, how do we get this process started? What we do with clients, or you can do yourselves, is like an automation workshop. So here's just some general ideas. Everybody's different. Every culture is different, but here's some general ideas of what you can think about if you want to do a workshop. So think about what can be done with the solution. So with WORKATO, so there's automations and there's integrations, two ways to look at it. Maybe a workshop where you do discovery. So you need to think about who should attend from the business. You might want to do a process review. So how do I organize that? Which processes we want to look at? Look at what your biggest pain points are. So where do we spend the most manual time? what reports take us the most time to do. Things like that. And then you can do a quick ROI calculation on that. So if it's taking me, 40 hours a month to generate these reports, and I can get that down to 10 hours, then I can quickly see what the value is to the business. And then I can do a pilot for a quick win. As you'll see with WORKATO, it is really, really easy to get started, right? So you can do a pilot in literally a few hours and get a quick win out of it. And then that gives you more confidence to go on to the more complex stuff. General use cases that you might look at, and some of these we sort of talked about earlier, but moving data around, updating data, tracking status, tracking data, alerts on things, tedious and time-consuming processes, sensitive data, perhaps that you don't want anybody particularly touching unless they have a certain level of authority, but yet it needs to be used, so that can be automated in the background. Areas where you want to scale without having additional people. Look for bottlenecks and choke points in the business process. So again, that could be an approval process, right? That keeps slowing things down. Other things to look at, or large volumes of data that need to be managed, processes end-to-end that take an extended amount of time, or cross operations, right? So you might need an input from the sales team to do something. That's an area that, if you look at an automation or alert, you can speed that up. As with any automation, the more well-defined the rules and the structure is, the easier it is to automate, right? So if I'm just collecting data from some different spreadsheets or different systems, and I have to manipulate it and stick it into a report, that's probably a pretty well-defined rule and structure. That can be automated. The data can be collected, the report can be prepared, and then it can be distributed to the appropriate people. So we're happy to help with automation workshops. They're actually really a lot of fun to do. So if anybody's interested in that, just let us know after the meeting. We can get in touch with you. About ONE Pacific, just a quick us. We have been, I said earlier, we're based in Hong Kong, although we do, as you can see from the map, we support clients around the world. We do a lot of work with WORKATO on the enterprise resource planning side. We work with Oracle NetSuite primarily, and then on the automation, on the analytics side, data lakes and stuff like that, we work usually with Amazon Web Services, although it depends on the client. We've done stuff with Azure as well. So that's just a 2-minute overview of us. Just some clients. We have a lot of different clients across different industries. And that's kind of it for me. So I'm going to turn over to Ken, and he's going to talk about some WORKATO specific stuff and then some industry use cases. So Ken, I'm going to stop the share and let you take it over.
I think, Ken, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Thanks, Donald. Thanks everyone for your time. And yeah, so I'm going to take everyone through the next part of today's webinar, and it's really to talk about why WORKATO in automating everything that Donald has just shared, right? So I think one of the things that Donald did touch upon earlier is the space of using no-code or low-code platforms, and its growth that we have seen in over the past few years, right? And that's really what's driving a lot of our customers adopting platform like WORKATO. Now, if you think about what you need to do to automate everything that you need in the finance and accounting departments, it is largely automating the processes. But at the same time, right, as Donald has shared, there's a lot of systems that actually needs to be hooked together as well to make this whole automation process a seamless one. Therefore, when it comes to the platform and what you need from a technology point of view to help you enable that, you actually need one platform that provides you both the technology to integrate and automate processes, right? And that's really what WORKATO has been built from ground up to deliver. We provide out of the box connectors with many of the systems that you are using today. But at the same time, we also something that Donald has shared. And Timothy will be, demoing later. Some of the more interesting automation use cases with the use of Slack and Microsoft Teams, right, to increase that engagement and change how we do work essentially as well. And that's really cool. I think the second thing when it comes to the platform is the need to, have something that's easy to use. for not just, so that you don't have to rely just on IT to help you build all these automations. We see a lot of our clients actually trying to help IT essentially, right, to build these automations, and by building these automations themselves. So a low-code tool like WORKATO really bridges the gap between IT and business, and allowing both of these teams to actually collaborate and work very closely together. But of course, at the same time, these are technology tools, and therefore, from the IT point of view, they still need a robust platform, something that they can actually have a centralized view and govern as well. And again, that's how we have designed WORKATO for the large, for all our customers to use. And of course, at the end of the day, you will be automating some of the very important processes in your organization, right? So while we provide simplicity and power, you also would expect that this platform is something that you can trust to run and automate your processes. So therefore, from a capability perspective, the platform is built to scale, right? It scales up as the need comes, right? It handles any workflow and any workload that you are expecting of the platform. And lastly, it's one that's also secure, right? Because we need to make sure that whatever we deliver to our customers, it is something that you can trust to run your processes and have the data flow through our platform. And the one thing, as I kind of talk about just now, is automation, like I said, cannot happen without integration. And this is true when we kind of really look at how you need to roll out your automation of the processes. As I mentioned, the landscape of all the applications that you may be using today can be fairly complex in some cases. And as you start to map the processes that you want to automate, some of the manual tasks that needs to be seamlessly integrated, these oftentimes do cut across, from the technology point of view, different applications, right? This could be your Salesforce in the CRM system, or NetSuite as the ERP system, or even some big data platform where you have all your transactional data in as well. And all this requires you to kind of start to move data around as you automate that process, because otherwise that automation is probably still disconnected, because it's not able to access the information and data that you need to drive the effective integration and automation. So what we see is a lot of companies really need that speed, simplicity, and cohesion across all these applications, right? As they build their automation as the way forward. So that's essentially is really what WORKATO is here to help you solve, right, in your organization. And the way we do that is fairly unique. If integration is a pretty complex technology problem, right? But WORKATO, as I shared, we provide a low-code or no-code platform to solve this integration and automation problem. And the way we approach that is using something we call the recipe. Now, what is the recipe? A recipe is simply a representation of the workflow that you'll be automating, right? And as per every workflow, there's a trigger and then a series of actions that happens from that trigger. So a trigger could be a business event. Say for example, a new ticket in Zendesk. A customer calls in and a customer rep actually then starts to create the service ticket and something happens. It could also be, for example, in the order to cash process, right, where the sales team closes a deal, right, and locks that information into their CRM system, right, and automatically from there that business event kicks off a series of actions that needs to happen then on the various downstream systems, right? It could be NetSuite where the that order is created, right? The invoices and the purchase orders, etc., is sent to the customer, and so forth. So it's essentially, that's what the recipe does. And as you can see here, recipes on the WORKATO platform are very easy to understand. It is, described in plain English, and that's really how we allow our customers to very easily configure, these automations and really build, something that is effective, right? automating their finance and accounting processes. Now, how are these platform being used by some of our customers? There are many different use cases. I think Donald has already shared the broad spectrum of use case that we typically see, and across all of them is things that we've seen our customers use the WORKATO platform to automate as well. From quote to cash to procure to pay to data unification, the record to report use cases. Many of our customers in the region also use it for revenue reconciliation, right? Making sure that payments are accurate as they send it across to the bank to process. And I know many of these customer invoicing billing processes as well. Things like making sure the invoice is sent properly through DocuSign, and once the customer signs it, they automatically then process the subsequent steps, as they receive the signature. So many of these, very similar type of use cases, right, that our customers have done on our platform. And to share one example, Koi Chon is actually, one of the fast food restaurants in Malaysia, right? They basically sell Korean fried chicken. It's pretty nice if you have the opportunity to try it. Now they have this problem of very tedious and error-prone process which they run on a daily basis, that where they need to transfer the sales activity between systems, right? So primarily in this case, it's their in-store POS system, point of sale. And then they on an everyday basis, they extract that and upload it into their NetSuite implementation, right? So as you can imagine, this can be pretty menial. They take roughly about 4 hours every day to just do this, right? And because it's a manual process, right, you can imagine sometimes there's errors as well. Things like extracting and then uploading the wrong file, right? So then they have to go through a lot of corrective actions in order to fix those problems. Now with WORKATO, we have completely automated this whole process, and they eventually was able to immediately save that 4 hours every day and allow that personnel of theirs to do more effective work, right? So that's what they've experienced very early on using WORKATO to help them solve this automation problem. And then now they are starting to think, like, what else can they do, right? Because of this success that they have achieved with this use case. Now we do also have another use case with WobbleWorks, right? And I think this is something that Donald, you've worked with them in Hong Kong. So maybe I can get you to share their story as well.
Yeah, sure. We've worked with them for several years now. They actually make a really cool educational toy called a 3Doodler. So it's a 3D pen, and it's really taken off. And you can imagine, in the pandemic as well, everyone was stuck at home. It's really taken off. So their business has done really well, and it was all their e-commerce was basically manual, right? And they were working with Shopify. So we did the initial automation between Shopify and NetSuite on placing an order, updating the pricing, doing the refunds, updating inventory, and the whole fulfillment. So really the whole business cycle. I think right now we're actually adding a separate Shopify instance for them, one for US and one for international. And then I think Amazon is coming up next as well. There's another slide on that, so you can see that. So yeah, so US Shopify and international Shopify. So really the data is completely integrated all the way from the sales to the fulfillment and the refunds. So that all goes directly into NetSuite, into their financial system. And there's actually a nice video they did with us. It's on our website, and it gives a little more information, but you can go take a look at that. But it really fixed a lot of manual and error-prone processes. So the quality of the data improved dramatically. That was a massive pain point for them. And it's really helped them now because the volume has shot up so much. They would not have been able to do it on a manual basis anymore. So.
All right. Cool. Thanks for sharing that story with WobbleWorks. And then with that, I think the next section is where Timothy was now show all right how this is done. So I'll pass it on to you, Timothy.
Yeah, use one.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm Timothy. I'm the senior consultant in OnePac. I'm a certified NetSuite developer as well as I'm certified by WORKATO. So let me just quickly share my entire screen. Today, I'm mainly going to talk about Workbot, and Workbot is available on Slack, Teams, and Google Workspace. What it is, it's a connector to connect WORKATO with whatever other system in the recipe. And the reason why we were talking about these Workbots is that we find that using a work-based communication platform and a collaboration platform to be a important step in your digital transformation. It will reduce internal emails as well as improve communication and response time. So I would give a scenario. So imagine a normal company with a very kind of old IT support scenario. You would have your user send an email to the support email, and then the support person would register a case on Zendesk, would create a ticket, and then they would perhaps email back after they find a Zoom invitation. And then the users connect via Zoom after receiving the email in about 5 minutes. And then the support person might tell the user to restart the computer. And that would usually take around 50 minutes, I'm assuming. And it's around that time. But what you could do if you had a collaboration platform is that you directly from Teams or Slack or Google Workspace tell the support person you have an issue, and they would still log the ticket on Zendesk. But however, you don't need to wait for the email. You could directly screen share on the collaboration platform itself. So that would take around 5 minutes, which means that's a greater turnover rate on your support cases already, and you're getting support at a faster time. So use one of these collaboration platforms, and if you want to maximize the potential, you can use the bot as well. So like I said, this is available on Slack, Teams, and Google Workspace, and today I'm only going to show for Slack and Teams out of favoritism. So I'm going to give you a few ideas about what you can do on Slack. So I have here everyone can see both sides, right? So I have here one scenario, the first scenario being I am a sales manager and I have a sales team, and hopefully they're on the field and not, trying to enter stuff in the system in a PC in the back office. So what I want to do is through perhaps a collaboration platform, and my company is using Salesforce and NetSuite, and have them just enter the information once and have it in both places, okay? So they are on my collaboration platform as well, because they might need help from tech demo, and that's team cohesion and all that good stuff. So they're using Slack. So what you do is you build a command, and I'll show you this command later, and it's not difficult to build. OnePack create customer. And then what you could do is you can see that the Slack bot could return a button for you to process something else. So I'm going to press this button, and it will spawn me a form. So now I'm going to type in an account name, and out of the top of my head, what I had for lunch, I guess I'm going to go with KFC. I'm not sure for the number of KFC, but I will find some number. 34605018. You can contact OnePack for this. And then I'm going to go KFC@kfc.com. Employees, they probably got like 250K, I'm guessing. It's pretty hot rating and hot and spicy. Okay, let's go submit. So what this would hopefully do is it will create the KFC record in Salesforce, KFC customer in Salesforce, as well as create the KFC record in NetSuite. Okay, so I have the Salesforce here open, so I'm going to refresh, and hopefully this is going to show up. It's like a magic trick. Okay, it is showing up with 34605018. That's the OnePack number, by the way. Okay, so inside KFC, we can see the great details that I just placed in: 250K, the email, the hot and spicy description. Okay, and actually these are links. So in case your leads and other people do want access into the system, they can click this and fill in additional information, for example, or if you in some event where actually this would help them get access, not get access, but be able to post things in the system without really having a user license. Okay, that's the additional benefit. And I'm just going to show you that it is also created in NetSuite. And later, I'm going to also show you via the recipe that we could do other deduplication logic in it so that the records are not created twice. So say you have multiple team members, but you type in KFC twice. And so you don't want two KFC records in your system. So I'm going to show you that as well. And actually, I can't show you that right now, but I will show you that later. Okay, so the second scenario we have is that I have a support case in Jira, and I want it so that when the Jira case updates, I'm going to find the specific person, the reporter, that the case was updated, and please do something about it, or I'm going to give some instructions, and hopefully they'll do it, and then mark it as done, because it's always up to the users or that the person that raises a ticket to close the ticket, not really the support person's task to go back and flag it, right? So I'm gonna here I have a scenario which is I can't send emails, and then and then for whatever reason the support person will update. I have updated your SMTP server details. Please try to send another email. Please retry. Yeah, something like that. So I'm going to save this. Okay. So then, because of demonstration purposes, I've stopped the recipe so that the polling works every 5 minutes. So that we don't have to wait 5 minutes, I'm just going to hit start recipe and it'll grab one right away. So this is the faster way of showing you this, but have it run, and then every 5 minutes or so, you would grab a new task, which means you receive these updates every 5 minutes. So I have this, which is, hey, Lab 6 has been updated. Okay, and then obviously this is a link to Lab 6, but on here you can see that it is still on to do, not done, right? So I'm going to press this button, and this button will change it to done. And it says Lab 6 mark is done. I'm going to open a new window. Oops. I'm going to refresh this. And this is marked as done. So that is the second scenario. So the third scenario, actually, I'm just going to show you, because just because of favoritism, right? I've showed you Slack. I will show you Teams as well. So what you can show on Teams is that you can have perhaps your customer name. You could have a transaction information or a sales order in this example. You have the company name, you have perhaps the transaction ID and the sales rep, and perhaps a date of the transaction, the currency, and the amount. And based on this, if the finance person or the team member is able to use this information to just approve or reject, you can use these buttons as well to just suppose this was approved, suppose this was reject, have something work in the background. So then again, you could have people who are just on the collaboration platform and don't need to really log into different systems to do different things, because the difference is the information is not centralized in one place. So this could also grab information from, say, different systems and actually post one single message. So you could have a joint message without the user having to search different instances and stuff. And also show you that there is drop down and available things you can construct in these messages. And this is not limited. This is just approval, so it's not limited to, say, sales, purchase, requisition, expenses, timesheets. It could be anything, any of those things. So with Workbot, you could do these approval on the collaboration platform. So and don't let me bound you on your imaginations. Okay, so I've shown you that in the create customer, it can spawn a form, and you can fill in things, and you can have it happen in multiple systems. You can have buttons that just do one thing. You could have multiple buttons. Okay, so whatever you want really to do with the buttons, you can decide and construct something like that. Okay. Now, all this is great. What if I told you that you can all do all of this without having your IT and DevOps team involved, and so you don't have to wait maybe for them to have their own time, resource allocation and planning, all that stuff, and have this in 6 months time. So you could build this your own. And not only that, so you could think that specialist knowledge with different systems. Surely, you know, and I can assure you, you don't actually need that, because authenticating with some of these systems, at least, is something that what you've done before. So let me show you. Okay, so here I have a connector to Jira, and it uses a specific authentication type called OAuth2. Now, what OAuth2 is, it sounds complicated, but it's actually something that everyone has done. At least I believe everyone has done before. What this is, once you hit connect, it will spawn a window. Now, this is exactly what you do when you say create an account with Google or create an account with Facebook. The OAuth2 is a simple handshake that you do which you would authorize, and it's a click of a button, and in the back, it will do all of it for you. Okay, so let us go back and into the recipe itself that I said was with deduplication logic. So what a recipe is, it consists of a trigger and multiple actions. Okay, so it consists of a trigger and multiple actions. And what's special about Workato with different connectors, like Kenneth said, is that it is multi-endpoint. So it's not that when we always visualize integration, it's always application A with application B with lane A, B, C, which could be different records, could be sales orders, could be invoices, could be payments, etc. But with Workato, it's designed like a workflow. So you can see that in here we have a trigger, and the trigger here is a Slack command. But what it could also be is it could also be a trigger like this, which is an updated issue in Jira, which is what we saw in stage 2. Now, these triggers here actually have built-in polling, which is a request loop. So every 5 minutes, it will try and call and grab stuff. And it has deduplication logic built in. So for the IT team, this is usually an issue that you have to overcome when you're trying to build these connectors. But Workato has done that for you. So any of these triggers that are built in Workato will already have this deduplication logic and polling logic built in already. The second component with the recipe is the action. So in the action, you can, for example, I've logged to talk to myself, and then you have record has been updated and a link. And these actions are, you can click on it and you could do logic. So like I said just now with the deduplication logic in here, what I did was I searched for the accounts and I wanted to see if there was this account name in there. If I found something, then I just update it. If I didn't find something, then I'll create it. And it's the same for NetSuite. So we can build if-else logics into the recipe itself, and in a visualized way as well. So and you can also build for loops and let me give you an example about like how you would drag data pools. So this is the UI of the designer for Workato, and you have the actions in the left, and on the right is the details about this specific box. What you could do is say you wanted to update customer, and the steps before this this update customer step is stored in the Workato recipe data in an output tree. So within the output tree, you can see I can grab Salesforce account details. And if you wanted to grab the phone number, I would probably search phone number here. And I could click and drag this onto the phone number field here. And so I would have effectively mapped account phone to phone during this step. And not only that, I could actually do a group map data, which saves a lot of time when you have similar records. So say I wanted to update customer and I want to take a look at, whatever I typed in my command. I'll click this and then I'll scroll down to the bottom where in the initial first demo, I showed the creating the customer. So I could click this and then I could click next, and you can see it found like an exact match email. And for fields, when you have a lot of these fields, it could be really beneficial to save time using these group map features. Okay. Second thing I want to show is the custom fields that you have in your integrated systems are actually automatically populated into Workato without having extra customization. So if you are using the Workato connector or even the Salesforce connector, when you create these custom fields, it is dragged and populated into this with the connector. So there's no additional customization required. As with other integrators, what could possibly happen is that only standard features are available. So you would need to do additional customization on your system and then additional customization on the connector for everything to work. So Workato would deal with that perfectly without having this to do. Yeah. So that's just about my demo. If there are any questions, do let me know. If there's anything Ken wants to add, do let me know. And I'm going to try that connector again. Well, by first deleting my cache.
All right, so I'll take over this.
Sure.
I'll do some questions while you play with that. That's cool.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. You can speak. You can speak. Oh. I'll just play.
Okay. Well, I think there's one thing that Timothy just pointed out around the fields and the pre-built data. So what we found is that we're able to develop, just talk about integrations. Maybe if it took us something took 40 hours before, it can be done in a fraction of the time. So even for us and our team, it's about efficiency. So we can do things a lot faster and get a lot more done in a shorter period of time. And for our clients, they get more value out of that as well. So it works really well. Sorry, I'm going to go to the last slide. So you need to unshare there.
Go on. Let me see if this works.
Okay, let me see if that works. It better work.
Let's try. Maybe it's HTTPSR.
Nope. All right. So
I got it working. Bad luck.
All right. So we're going to wrap it up. I think we've gone a little bit over. Just gonna do a couple of takeaways, and then if you have any questions, you feel free to ask the questions, or you can post them in the chat group, or you can contact us later. There'll be a QR code for that. So just some key takeaways, I think. So finance accounting have transformed significantly and are transforming. So there's a lot of opportunities in here, and we talked about how you could get a workshop going to get your own organization to get some benefits. But removing the busy work definitely frees up a lot of organizations and lets you focus on higher value activities, which makes the finance team a better partner for the overall business. Automation is definitely the future, especially for fast growing companies or large companies. We saw that over 25% of automation is already in finance and accounting. Integration is the key. Across systems, everyone's got multiple systems now. There's just no way around it. There's too much out there, and it even extends to your mobile devices as well. So automating the workflows requires the professionals to connect, and those professionals don't necessarily have to be in the IT department anymore. And that's where the low code, no code comes in. You can develop your own, you can test it, and there's little or no coding background required. As Timothy showed, I opened up my Salesforce connector and all the fields are already there, even the custom ones I've added. And so I really just drag and drop. Almost anyone can do a kind of an if-then statement. We're doing it in Excel already, so there's no reason you can't do it in Workato. So you'll see a lot more from these tools, and they just keep getting better and better. So Q&A. So if anybody wants to raise any questions, please jump in, or you can also give us some feedback here. If you just go to the QR code, give us some feedback, or if you can reach out to Candace at onepac.net if you'd like to find out more. I think we're happy to help with automation workshops if someone wants to run that. If you want to come a more in-depth demo and look at some different use cases, we're happy to help you with that. We sort of really just touched on some of the things that we have done with the solution before.